Hey, Kevin, you obviously produced pretty prolifically, but why don't you think the offense was as prolific as a team as it normally is?
Well, they're very athletic, so all the stuff that we run, they did a good job. It was just clogging the paint up and, getting out on the shooters and, getting their hands in the passing lane. So when that starts to happen, I think we just need to just be aggressive to the rim and start to drive and kick. And but I think tonight we just try to stick to, throwing the ball in the paint. Throwing the ball in the crowd, dribbling into a crowd. We just had to just calm down a little bit and settle in. But good learning experience.
Kevin, what were they doing early that kind of tilted the game toward them from the jump almost?
Well, Russ came out and made the first 9 shots, I think, and that's what got him going. He was prolific in the pick and roll and got to the rim and knocked down the 3. So once he knocking down the 3 and the pull up, it's tough to stop him. And that was the game right there, the first quarter, and they have 42 points. And so you gotta give them credit. They came out with a lot of energy, and we didn't match it.
Kevin, is this the kind of game we're over here? Sorry, where you I lost my train of thought there for a second. Where do you guys kind of go from here? Actually, it's a lot of the same issues as far as turnovers and poor defense. Does it take maybe a game where you get thumped at home? I know you guys have gotten blown out.
Yeah, we just got beat by 30 in Utah. We struggled the last 2 games on the road, Sac in Denver, and we struggled obviously tonight. So just some film. We just got to hold ourselves accountable out there and come out be better next game. Just try to stay positive and keep moving forward and know that this is not the end of our season. We hit a tough stretch, but just about every team hit tough stretches, and it's about how you get through them.
You guys have had 25 turnovers 2 out of the last 3 games, 3 times this season. That's a number that's rarely hit in the NBA.
Yeah.
Why has it gotten to this point with the turnovers?
I think we're just overthinking it. We just got to keep it simple. When we keep it simple and we run plays that work for us and, we hit the open man, I think, we'll be fine. Once we start to make a little run, we just start to play simple. We hit the roll man, somebody hit the guy in the dunker spot, get a dunk, or we hit a guy for a wide open 3. So we got to get stops as well. So we can't play from down. We can't play from down 15 because we were rush and play too fast, and that's what turnovers happen. So we got to start the games better.
Hey, Kevin, there's a lot of uproar when the officials called you for a foul when Russ fell. What did you see on that play in particular?
Well, we were down 20 anyway, so, that wasn't a deciding factor in the game. It had nothing to do with the outcome. She just probably missed it, just like we missed a bunch of defense assignments and a bunch of layups and free throws, and it happened. So that wasn't a reason. That was just a bad play, probably a bad misjudgment on her end.
When you look at those turnovers in your mind, was it just energy? What's happened?
You said turnovers?
Yeah.
I think a lot of them just playing in a crowd tonight. They're obviously a very athletic, long team, and if you kind of just take those driving lanes and funnel yourself into traffic, it's hard to make the right play out of that. They made some good deflections early, but that was kind of the main thing that was wrong tonight. Just trying to force things, especially underneath the basket in the paint, instead of you either just taking a simple shot and getting a shot up, or reversing the ball back around the perimeter, finding the open guy. So just it's a tough night in that department, and we keep talking about it, and eventually we're going to figure it out. But the possession game, they got up 17 more shots, and I don't care who you play, that's not going to work.
Steph, with the way Russell came out of the gates in the first quarter they put up, how difficult was that to overcome?
That was obviously helpful for them to get a lead, but we can withstand that, especially one guy just coming down, dominating the ball and making plays. Like eventually, if we just stick with the program, create some resistance over the course of 48, we talk about it all the time that we're good enough and talented enough and smart enough to withstand individual efforts like that. But you can't do it with turning the ball over. You can't do it without creating any offensive thrust or whatnot. And I mean, he scored 21 in the first quarter and ended up with 34. So that wasn't really the issue. It was just the other stuff that we had to do around his performance in the first quarter to get ourselves back in the game, and we never did it.
Steph, don't mean to get you in trouble, but I want to ask about the officiating player dynamic out here tonight. It was some questionable calls, some calls that looked like they were phantom calls of that nature. Did those kind of things kind of throw you guys off as far as how it was officiated and what was said on both sides?
It was a rough night. It was a rough night, but it was. If we honestly going to say that they're the reason that we lost the game tonight, I think that's a little. I think that's off. We got to look ourselves in the mirror and understand what we can do to control the game, because we know that's something we can't control. Like as much as we want to, complain in the moment or try to, argue with the refs about what they should have seen or whatnot, and calls don't go our way. Like as we go down the stretch of the season and the playoffs, if that's something that's going to get under our skin and consistently, impact our performance, we're going to be in trouble. But I got faith that we can overcome tough nights with the whistle and still be who we are. Tonight was a rough one.
Hey, Steph, Kevin got the numbers he usually does, but just as a team, what prevented you guys from being balanced and efficient as you guys normally are?
I think against this team specifically, we have to understand how to counteract their length and their athleticism around the court on the offensive end. And that's kind of what I answered the first question. Just we know if we drive baseline, they have guys that rotate over and they're high hands, and we can't turn the ball over. But we know, when we get stops, we push in transition, pick and roll situations, we make the simple play. That's our bread and butter. And for whatever reason, just never clicked. And a lot of that is on me to try to control the tempo and the play calling, in the moment on the offensive end, continue to be aggressive, and whether it starts off, we start off the game hot or not, finding that kind of zone where we're clicking, and I didn't control that tonight.
Stephen, you guys leading up to this game and preparing for it, obviously remember the last game you guys played in back in Oklahoma City, what happened, all the turnovers and stuff. Yesterday, I remember you guys were talking about how you talked about defense, talked about turnovers. At what point, where do you go from here when you talked about it and dealt with it and addressed it and it still happens? Where do you go?
Just keep fighting, man. It's a long season. We know how to win. We know how to play. We know how to do the little things to get ourselves through a tough part of the season. We know how to show up for big games when we need to. Obviously, it doesn't happen every time, but there's no question we know how to do it. So I don't think it's that kind of. I think everybody said nobody's jumping ship right now, nobody's panicking or whatever, and that's honestly what's going on. Just stick with it. We know who we are. We know what we're about, and eventually it'll click. Like as long as we have the right kind of perspective and we treat every night as an opportunity to get better, and just not let go of the rope when things aren't going our way, like tonight. So we'll be all right.
Steph, I know you guys have staggered, you and KD, then you guys have played together. Is it tough watching the game, watching the other team kind of take control when you know you got 6 minutes to sit?
mean, yes and no. I know what my rotation is and whatnot throughout the regular season. That hasn't changed in the last 3 years. So whether it's different lineups or whatnot, coach is committed to the pacing our minutes as we go through the regular season, without kind of looking at every game in the playoffs last year and how the minutes changed. As we get closer and closer to playoffs, we obviously know the rotations kind of shrink a little bit, and we start to figure out exactly what we're going to go to when the playoffs come around. So we need to figure out, we do need to kind of get that understanding as we go throughout the last 30 games or so, what's going to be expected of every single person when they step foot on the floor and from game to game, and creating that consistency. But this isn't any different than the last 3 years. We lost 2 games in a row, and now everybody's kind of, putting everything under a microscope. So you got to just, stick with what we're about, who we are, and work it out.
Paul George has 10 steals in 2 games against you guys. How destructive a force has he been to your offense?
I mean, I haven't watched a lot of their games, but the ones I've watched, he's played amazing on both ends, and tonight was another chapter in that book. He made some tough shots, some tough plays, and it was timely on some deflections, and just being in the right place at the right time. So he's an all-star. Obviously, that's what all-stars do. But kudos to him for playing well and playing consistent and having a great game.
Great. Thank you. Practice tomorrow at 11. Steve, the Warriors had moments of explosiveness in this game, but never had a lead during the game. Why was this one a challenge from the get-go?
Did we have moments?
I could name a couple.
I didn't notice any moments. Yeah, it didn't feel like us, that's for sure. Ball wasn't moving, and when it was moving, it was generally moving to the wrong team. Another 25 turnover night. So yeah, we're out of whack right now. We're just not playing the way we normally do in terms of the ball movement and the pace and the spacing, and defense has not been good either. So it's been a struggle.
Before the season, you guys didn't have a 25 turnover game. I think the last 3 years. That's now 2 in the last 3 games, 3 this season. Why has this problem got to this point?
It's a good question, and watching the Sacramento tape, it just seemed mostly carelessness. We watch every tape closely, and monitor play calls and what we're running, what we're not running. We try to determine if turnovers are coming from, a certain action that we run. But I have a feeling when I watch this tape, it's going to be the same as Sacramento. It's just going to be carelessness. Just not making the simple play and not making the extra pass. The extra pass, what the extra pass does is it leads to an easier play for the next guy. I don't feel like we're making the extra pass to the open guy so that he can then move it on and make an easier play. So we're trying too hard almost to make the great play and hit the home run instead of just take the single.
Steve, what do you think accounted for the fact that Kevin was mostly, a representation of the offense in terms of production?
Kevin's always going to score. He can roll out of bed and do what he did tonight. So we just didn't get the ball movement and didn't take care of it. And they're a very good defensive team. We know that. They've got a lot of size and length. And if you try to go through them one-on-one, you're not going to have a lot of success. And it seemed like that's what we were trying to do.
You may have just answered the question, but the Thunder have beaten you by double digits twice this season. What problems do they pose to your team?
They're very good defensively, and they've taken it to us twice. So I don't have much else for you.
Steve, did you expect more out of your team this tonight? I mean, this is a game that you would think, coming home, 3 tough games on the road, that you would have, flipped that switch that you guys supposedly had?
Yeah, I was hoping that coming home would help us kind of get some energy and refocus, but obviously that wasn't the case. So we'll have to come back and get a little work in tomorrow at practice. Try to come back on Thursday and right the ship a little bit.
Coach, I'm not trying to set you up, believe me, but I have to ask about the officiating. The halftime, you were having a little talk with one of the officials after Draymond felt like he was hitting the mouth, and then there was a play where Russell Westbrook tripped. It seemed like nobody touched him and he fouled. What was your assessment of just the?
At halftime, I was asking Kenny if they were allowed to look at that play. I didn't know the rule, so I was just looking for clarification because Draymond came off the floor with a bloody mouth, and so I asked Kenny if they were allowed to look at it afterwards and determine if it was an elbow or technical or whatever. I wasn't quite sure what the rule was, so that's what I was asking about. This game had nothing to do with the officials. They were fine. They missed some calls. But we were way worse than the officials were. So, I thought they were fine. They had nothing to do with it. We got completely outplayed, and we were on our heels right from the beginning of the game, and that's on us.
Steve, at this stage on the turnovers, I mean, it's something you've talked about from day one.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can say that you haven't already said in regards to turnovers in defense at this stage?
I don't think so. It's a focus thing, and it seems like it's, our starters have been the culprits, the main culprits the last few games. Sacramento, 20 of the 25 came from our starters. Tonight, 17 of the 25. Our starters are almost pressing too hard and trying to make too many plays. And we'll look at the tape and see what it looks like. But I just think we're not playing like ourselves, which is making 5-6 easy passes in a possession instead of one spectacular one.
There were some lulls at times last year. There's been some lulls this year, but is this maybe the most extended rut you can remember your team in maybe the last couple of seasons?
I don't really recall. I mean, I know we had a stretch last year where we lost, 4 or 5 in a row or something. But, it happens. The season is so long and arduous and happens to everybody, and you go through a rough patch. And so we're in a rough patch, but we'll be fine. We'll get out of it. Thanks.